Have you ever watched two children fight over a toy they forgot about 5 minutes later? Their shouts echo, tiny fists raised, yet they don't know why they're angry. Now imagine those same fists grown larger, armed with steel and ideology. We call it war, but is it really so different from the playground? The Buddha once said, in this world, hate never yet dispelled, hate only, love dispels hate. You might wonder, how does a war begin? Not with tanks, not even with orders. It begins the moment someone says, they're not like us. A seed of separation, planted in fear, watered by pride. Can you feel that subtle war that begins in your own thoughts when you judge another? And once that seed grows, it finds its way into uniforms, into slogans, into the thunder of marching feet. No longer us and them, now it's win or lose. But what does it mean to win when the soul grows colder with every step? The Buddha said, a man is not called wise because he talks and talks again, but if he is peaceful, loving, and fearless, then he is, in truth, called wise. Have you ever seen a city before the first bomb falls? Children laugh, someone brews tea, a grandmother waters her plants, and then silence, followed by a sound that ends everything. The war didn't start, that day arrived that day, but its roots had long grown deep in the minds of men. When walls crumble, so do the stories inside them. Family photos reduced to ash, lullabies silenced mid-song, and the men who gave the orders, they sleep on silk, far from the flames. The Buddha taught, all tremble at violence, all fear death. Comparing oneself with others, one should not kill nor cause to kill. So whose name does war really serve? A young soldier was told he was protecting his people. But when he looked into the eyes of the man he shot, he saw no enemy, only fear, only pain. They wore different colors, but shared the same trembling hands. The Buddha said, just as I am, so are they. Just as they are, so am I. If we all suffer the same, why do we keep building sides? Some wars are not fought with guns, but with silence. A father returns home, but never speaks again. A mother cries without sound. Children grow up learning not words, but wounds. The Buddha taught, pain is certain, but suffering is optional. But what about the suffering no one dares to name? You may think war lives on battlefields, but it lingers in the dreams of those who survived. One night, one sound, and they're back in the dust, running for their lives. Peace isn't the end of war. Healing is, the Buddha said, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. So, when was the last time you offered a word of peace? Statues are raised for warriors, streets named after generals, but no monuments for the mothers who waited, for the children who never understood why. History remembers guns, seldom tears. The Buddha said, what is not given is lost. What legacy are we truly leaving behind? In a temple far from any border, a monk lit a candle for every soul lost in war. He did not ask who they fought for, only that they once lived, laughed, loved. The flame flickered, but never judged. The Buddha said, in separateness lies the world's greatest misery. In compassion lies its only hope. So what if we honored all life, not just the lives we agree with? One day, a child asked, why do people fight? The teacher hesitated, not for lack of answer, but for too many. Borders, gods, flags, oil, pride. But none could be explained without shame. The Buddha said, there is no fire like passion, no shark like hatred, no snare like folly, no torrent like craving. Long ago, a king asked the Buddha how to win every war. The Buddha replied, win your mind, and no one can defeat you. But kings, preferred swords. So wars continued not because we didn't know better, but because we didn't choose better. Isn't that still true today? A man once fought for justice, then forgot what justice was. The cause consumed him. The violence justified itself. He didn't notice when his heart hardened or when fear replaced love. The Buddha said, "He who seeks revenge digs to graves." So what are we digging, and who will we bury? Two elders met after decades each had fought on opposite sides. Now old, brittle, they sat together not as enemies, but survivors. They didn't speak of battles, only of sons lost and dreams missed. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 battles, one is the one who conquers himself." Perhaps peace begins when memory becomes forgiveness. He once believed peace was weakened. He learned how hard it is to stay kind in the face of cruelty, to hold your ground not with fists, but with truth, to suffer without striking back. The Buddha said, "Endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is to the one who endures that the final victory comes." So, do you still think peace is passive? In a village rebuilt after war, no one spoke of the past. But silence does not heal, it hides. Only when one woman painted a mural of those who were lost did the village finally weep. The Buddha taught, to understand everything is to forgive everything. What stories are waiting inside you to be seen and finally released? Once, a general stood over a battlefield he had won, but there were no cheers, only smoke and boaties. He whispered, "What have I done?" But the echo came from inside him, not the field. The Buddha said, "He who has conquered himself is a far greater hero." A boy was born the day a ceasefire was signed. His name meant hope, but no one told him what peace really meant. He grew up fearing loud noises, flinching at silence. Peace isn't just the absence of war, it's the presence of safety. And who is responsible for creating that? You can't bomb your way to trust. You can't rebuild a heart with cement. Nations sign treaties, but the soul signs forgiveness or doesn't. The Buddha said, "Let go of anger, let go of pride. When you are bound by nothing, you go beyond sorrow." So what are we still clinging to? There's a kind of courage that doesn't roar. It kneels beside the wounded, not asking who they were. It rebuilds not from pride, but from love. The Buddha taught thousands of candles can be lit from a single one. Compassion never decreases by being shared. So what kind of warrior will you choose to be? Two boys, born on opposite sides of a war, both learned to hate before they learned to read. They never met, yet dreamed the same nightmares. They were taught different flags, but shared the same hunger, the same ache to feel safe. The Buddha said, "All beings tremble before danger, all fear death." When you see yourself in others, whom can you harm? So why do we build walls before bridges? Have you noticed how war steals more than lives? It takes away music, laughter, stories passed down. In its shadow, joy feels guilty. But joy is not betrayal, it's defiance against despair. The Buddha taught, even amidst fierce flames, the lotus blooms. The greatest battles are fought inside against anger, fear, vengeance. And the only weapon that wins them all is awareness. When we know what we're feeling, we stop acting blindly. The Buddha said, with mindfulness, one can master the mind. The mind is the source of both suffering and liberation. So what war lives inside you? An old tree stood between two nations for centuries. Its roots reached under both lands. Soldiers once aimed to cut it down, but stopped when birds returned to nest in its branches. The Buddha said, like a tree, live in harmony. Give shade even to those who cut your bark. What if the earth remembers peace better than we do? You might think you're powerless, but even silence holds weight. Every time you choose kindness, you disarm something in the world. Every time you listen, a conflict somewhere begins to dissolve. The Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. So the real question is, what peace are you willing to create today? Once, a refugee carried nothing but a small bowl. He crossed mountains, deserts, borders, and in that bowl, he kept a prayer, may all beings be free from harm. He lost everything except compassion. The Buddha said, drop by drop, the water jar fills. And sometimes, healing the world begins with holding just one prayer. They asked an old monk how he could sit still while the world burned. He answered, because if I don't, the fire will spread into me. Stillness is not escape, it's resistance. The Buddha said, meditate, do not delay, lest you regret it later. So when the world roars, how do you respond? There are wars we inherit, scars, passed down in silence. But just as pain is inherited, so is healing. When one person chooses peace, a chain begins. The Buddha said, be a lamp unto yourselves and to others. So who will you choose to become for those who follow you? There are wars we inherit, scars passed down in silence. But just as pain is inherited, so is healing. When one person chooses peace, a chain begins. The Buddha said, be a lamp unto yourselves and to others. So who will you choose to become for those who follow you? No war truly ends with treaties or silence. It ends when we no longer carry it in our minds. When we meet pain with presence, wounds with wisdom. The Buddha said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. So now, the war is over. But is peace within you? A broken wall once divided to nations. When the wall finally fell, people rushed to see what was on the other side. They found people just like them. The Buddha said, we are not punished for our anger, but by it. How many walls have we built in our own hearts? One soldier wrote letters to the families of those he had hurt. He received no replies, only silence. But in writing, he felt something shift, a release, a softening. The Buddha said, confession is the beginning of healing. So even if no one forgives you, can you forgive yourself? An artist painted scenes of war, then overlaid them with gold leaf. Not to hide the pain, but to honor it. The cracks became beauty, not despite the suffering, but because of it. The Buddha said, turn poison into medicine. What would happen if we stopped erasing the past and started transforming it? There's a quiet kind of bravery no one applauds. It's the decision not to pass down hate, to stop the story of violence where it ends with you. The Buddha taught, as rain does not penetrate a well-thatched roof, so passion does not penetrate a well-trained mind. So can you be the shelter that ends the storm? In the ruins of war, a child planted a seed, not because it would fix everything, but because someone, somewhere, needed to believe in tomorrow. The Buddha said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. Sometimes, the smallest act is the loudest hope. Some say peace is naive, but what's naive is thinking war leaves anyone untouched. Even the victors carry invisible scars. The Buddha said, in this world, hate never yet dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. So maybe peace isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only true strength. A veteran sat by a lake, watching ripples spread from a single drop. I used to believe I needed to change the world with fire, he whispered. But now, I see it only takes stillness and a single drop of kindness. The Buddha said, you will not be punished for your anger. you will be punished by your anger. Have your ripples been made of fury or compassion? They tried to erase history, burned books, torn flags, forgotten names. But pain buried is not pain healed. Truth, however uncomfortable, is the soil where real peace takes root. The Buddha said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. What are we pretending not to remember? A mother once told her child, "We survived so you wouldn't have to fight." The child looked at a broken monument and said, "Then teach me how not to forget." Memory can wound, yes, but it can also protect if passed down with wisdom. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Some wars are loud, fought with guns and fear. Others are silent battles of ego, greed, and pride. But every war begins in the mind, and so does every peace. The Buddha said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." What are you thinking today? There was a man who collected war medals, polishing them daily, but his eyes never shone. One day, he gave them away not out of shame, but release. The Buddha said, "Let go of attachment. Cling to nothing, and you will be free." What are you still polishing that no longer serves you? A group of former enemies gathered not to argue, but to plant trees. No speeches, no headlines, just silent digging. As roots grew deeper, so did their understanding. The Buddha said, "To plant a seed is to believe in tomorrow." What seeds are you planting with your thoughts, words, and actions? She used to scream in her sleep, haunted by memories she never chose. But one night, she lit incense, whispered the names of those she lost, and wept freely. Grief became prayer. The Buddha said, "Pain is certain, suffering is optional." Have you allowed your heart the space to break and breathe? They built a monument for peace, not of stone, but of silence. No plaques, no names, just space to sit and feel. And in that silence, something ancient stirred, awareness. The Buddha taught, when the mind is silent, the heart begins to speak. Have you made space to listen? He once believed vengeance was justice. But when he met the son of the man he hated, and saw the same pain mirrored back, his belief shattered. Not because he changed his mind, but because he opened his heart. The Buddha said, "The way is not in the sky. The way is in the heart." What would you see if you looked through the eyes of your enemy? A child once asked, "Why do people fight?" An elder replied, "Because they forget they are one." The Buddha said, "See yourself in others, then whom can you hurt?" Sometimes the deepest wisdom begins with the simplest question, and sometimes peace begins in how we answer it. There are wounds the world may never fully heal, but we can stop them from becoming new wars. To choose peace is not to forget, but to remember differently with compassion. The Buddha said, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." So what are you still drinking? A battlefield, long abandoned, now grows wildflowers. No names remain, only roots. And maybe that's the truest memorial. Not stone, but life that dares to return. The Buddha said, "As rain falls equally on the just and the unjust, so must compassion." What are we doing to let life bloom again? The final war is not out there, it's in us. Against blame, against bitterness, against the urge to other. Victory is not conquest, it's understanding. The Buddha said, "Peace is the highest bliss," and that peace has always been waiting within you. So now we've walked through war and through memory, not to judge the past, but to understand it, not to forget suffering, but to soften it with wisdom. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." If you've heard that word here, carry it, live it, be it.